floor tenants have been solicited from the day we won the RFP. And we've taken sort of a long and winding road to get where we are, but there have been probably hundreds of potential tenants for the ground floor space that we have contacted and had various levels of discussion with, from initial interest to maybe I'm interested or not, and then ultimately we ended up in front of the commission with various tenants for each and every space. We are down now to one space. All the other ground floor spaces have gone to restaurants, and we are trying now to rent the remaining space, which consists of 2 units, to a retail tenant, because we believe that the residents and people going to the beach would be best served by having a beach type store there.
I agree with that, but I'm seeing the tenant that we had, the same tenant. We're not seeing anything else.
Well, we had other tenants that were interested. And in fact, the commission approved the lease with Fox, and Fox then got buyer's remorse and ended up backing out, and so they fell by the wayside.
And since Fox fell by the wayside, what has been done by your company to aggressively market that?
At the time the vote was to accept Fox, there were other tenants who actually had signed leases and were up for your consideration, including a retailer who is very financially sound, but had a company policy where they wanted to close on Saturdays for religious reasons.
I understand that. I was here.
And so the commission decided that was an unacceptable condition, so they were ruled out. What you have in front of you today is a much better lease than anything we've brought to you before, because the rent is higher. There is money that's deposited that will guarantee the payment of rent. One of the original goals that we were told when we started this process was that you wanted to try and retain any existing tenants. We had discussions with every tenant that was there. Unfortunately, because of various reasons, Barry represents the last opportunity we have to keep an existing tenant, which was one of our directives, and he will be paying the highest rent of any tenant in the casino. So under those circumstances and with those conditions in place, we believe that it's in the city's best interest to approve the lease as it's been negotiated with staff and with the prospective tenant.
Mr. Maswell? Well, I disagree with you. I think it's in your best interest. I don't know that it's in the city's best interest. This tenant was also somebody that had the hardship there, and I understand in these days and age everybody has hardship, but had a hardship paying what was going on then, and now is bringing a lot more money to the table, and I don't want to set anyone up for failure, and so I disagree. Mr. Maxwell?
I was wrong. Oh, I'm sorry. Okay, thank you.
Sorry.
You got to grab the gavel.
That's $10.
And you have the balance. Mr. Mulville? Okay, well, I'll have a couple of comments. Mayor?
Yeah. First of all, in reference to some of the comments that were made before Ms. Sharp, I was insulted by the letter from your attorney. I'm still passing the gavel because this is the offer we have on the table here, and this is a long-time tenant. And every time that we've come to this situation, I'm always looking at the business side of this, and that's what we have to start thinking, folks. We have to look at the business side of this and the side of it. Okay, it wasn't acceptable. There was bidding, and first of all, to say that what we went through last time, I'm not gonna get into that argument with anybody. There was bidding on the floor of the chambers, is why those leases were rescinded. Because had two sets of rules going. And quite honestly, that's what we're going through with this whole process, because the rules have changed so many times in reference to what we're looking for and what we're needing, and as it just keeps changing. But the one thing that remains the same is that this is a business. Okay, and this man is a longtime tenant, number one, but also it's the best deal for the city. The rates that he's going to be paying, his guaranteeing of the monies, and he's a long time, and he's one of the original people here. So I passed the gavel because I support that. He's got a history here in Lake Worth. He's financially secured his commitment to it. He's paying a decent rate, which is one of the main things we need this project is to fiscally sustain itself, and I'm gonna support it.
Thank you, Mayor. So let me explain why I didn't second the motion. I was kind of hoping for a much better and transparent presentation from staff and from our leasing agent, and we didn't get it. We frankly didn't get it. I don't know where to begin. I'll start with the leasing agent. You recommended on January, you did not recommend Barry on January 17th, but today you're recommending. So what's changed? How has Barry changed?
Well, there's been significant things that have changed. One is that Fox has been unwilling to accept many of the terms and conditions that were in the lease that was originally put forth and negotiated with the city. The other thing is that Barry is now willing to pay more rent, which is higher than any other tenant in the center. The third thing that has changed is that because there were some concerns about payment history in the past, that there has been a guarantee of money, substantial money, put up front that assures that those problems in the past should not occur now. So there's been significant things that have changed along the way that have caused us to recommend Barry as the best choice as of today, knowing everything we know and with what we've been able to obtain and negotiate within the lease.
We, I think as a commission, we took your recommendations when you recommended that we not accept New York Pizza. So I'm faced with a situation now where you're asking me, these two folks, these two entities were basically rated the same. The commission rejected one because of partially because of your recommendation. So here we are 6 months later, and it sounds to me like you don't have anybody else, so we should stay.
Well, that's not the case. I think this is the city commission has some very good reasons for accepting this deal. First is the rent. This is the highest rent we've been able to negotiate for any space. Okay, number one, rent, and that's a very important issue. Number two, it's an existing tenant. That was given to us as one of the things that you wanted to try and accomplish. Number three, we have money that's been put up to guarantee payment of the rent. And number four, the lease, there's a lot of provisions in the lease. The lease has been approved, and you have a tenant who's ready, willing, and able to sign a lease that has all of the clauses and conditions in it that your city legal staff and others have recommended be included. So it meets those criteria. That's why we're recommending it.
Before I go back from there, you mentioned provisions of the lease. My interpretation of the lease is that this is a lease that encompasses a possibility of 25 years.
It's a 5-year lease with, I believe, maybe 4 or 5-year. Yes.
That would be prohibited by our charter.
Well, we're not experts on your charter. We're assuming
Well, my point is
that
somebody, somewhere in the whole process, all the parties involved should know that we shouldn't be considering leases that are over 20 years. I think we were sued, if I'm not mistaken. There was some big brouhaha with other issues in our city over the length of leases on that beachfront property. And
Yeah.
now we've got, now you're telling me that I should perhaps accept a 25-year deal.
I'm not here to give you legal advice, and it may be that an option doesn't fall within the limitations on the years. I don't know. The city attorney and city manager need to review, and if it turns out that you can't sign a lease with options that could possibly run beyond a certain point, then that's part of the lease should probably be modified.
Petro?
I was just gonna say, notwithstanding that, I would certainly want to support find out what the city attorney has to say and the city manager have to say about that in regards to changing that. But again, I think it's very important that we're looking at each situation individually, not comparing this situation here to what it was the last time and whatever, because the same players are not involved. Okay, we made a decision last time based on what was presented in front of us. And that was the choices that we made based on all the people that were vying for that space in each and every situation. Now, our task is to look at this situation. And we have this client who everything that caused questions in the last time around for us to make the decisions that we made have now been addressed and identified. So I think look at this, to compare this with what it was before and who was involved in the past is not doing us any service, because we're looking at the situation at hand, which is this gentleman as a tenant.
Well, I would say, look, ultimately, I'm probably going to go with this, but I will tell you, Mayor, and I'll tell anybody else that's listening, this whole process has been an utter failure. If I were one of the other tenants, or if I was one of the new tenants, I'd be upset because they were not all treated the same way.
I agree, and I've said that from the very beginning.
And
We
that
had a
was
separate set
something-
of rules.
And that was something before this whole process began. I guess I was the lone voice up here trying to get us to create that type of an environment, but that's not the direction.
These gentlemen were out trying to lease spaces when we didn't even know the hours of the beach. I mean, this
Again,
process
the whole
has been.
process, and they came to us, that, we asked Mr. Stickton to do something, and he came back, and, we asked him to go, to talk to the existing tenants and come back and tell us what was left over. What he did was he came back with the existing tenants, oh, and by the way, I filled everything else while I was out there. That was not his direction. And I think that's where we got off on the wrong foot. Okay, we should have, I'm sorry? Well, you're entitled to your opinion, sir. But that's where we are. The other thing is, I hadn't heard from Mr. Friedman, and where's your attorney, by the way?
He's not my attorney anymore. He's not my attorney of public record.
I see. Well,
He seems to be persona non gratis in this commission.
But only by matters of standing here and disrupting the meetings and walking up and trying to make, I mean, every single thing, he's a man of the law. And
I'm not apologizing for him. His letter was his letter, and
Right.
that was his opinion.
And I don't.
My letter, I tried to bow out like a gentleman.
Yeah, hold on.
You're going to have him speak.
Okay, thank you.
You're going to allow people to speak. I don't know.
Yeah,